Hi, and welcome to the channel. This is a quick wrap up of day 14 in the Diddy trial. Let me just tell you off top that today was one of those days. This was the first time on a live where I was just like, I'm going to end this early. I found myself even going to sleep at one part because at a certain point with Mia being crossed by Brian Steele, I was like, okay, y'all, can we get Mia off the stand? At this point, she's given to the prosecution a few jewels they can use. You know, she corroborated Deontay Nash's story about when she and Deontay tried to jump on Diddy to protect Cassie, and that didn't work out in their favor. Then she corroborated some other incidents, with violence and that type of thing. Okay, so that's good for the prosecution. On the defense side, Brian still did not wear kid gloves handling Mia at all. I will say over and over again, whereas it is normal for women to cross women who are victims of SA or alleged victims of SA, in this case, that is not what Diddy's defense team chose to do. Diddy's defense team chose to put Brian Steele on that job. You know the type of lawyers that Diddy had, so that was an intentional choice. And the way that Brian still questioned Mia, that was also intentional and part of their strategy. It didn't go well for Mia once she was being cross examined. And I'm going to tell you that by the end of it, I didn't think she was all that credible. It wasn't enough to make me dismiss her testimony as a whole, but at a certain point, it just got like, please, can we please let Mia go? Because it was just inconsistencies and just a lot of stuff that's just hard to understand. So let's before I rattle on, let me not pontificate about that, and let me just highlight for you all what happened. So again, today's testimony was all over the place. The defense was able to get in a birthday video today, a Diddy birthday video that Mia made. Again, this is a pseudonym that Mia is using as she testifies. And I'm not really sure what happened because everything we had access to online, the judge had decided that the defense could not enter this birthday video, but they could ask her about the video. I guess there were some other proceedings and some other arguments around that because the video was entered and showed to the jury today. So, from how it's been described, it's a video with Mia who's kind of upbeat, putting on lip gloss, saying happy birthday to Diddy. The whole reason why the defense wanted to get this video in addition to the text messages or the social media posts, is because the defense said to the judge, when the jury was not there, of course, they said Mia is acting. They said her affect on that stand, the looking down, the how she's speaking and all of that. They said straight up, she is acting, she is putting on the show. That is not who she is. That is not how she presents herself. And we need this video to show the jury that it's who they're seeing on that stand is not the Mia that everybody knows. So they were able to introduce that today. They went over Mia's resume, where she went to college, what she said her skill sets were. The defense, Brian Steele, talked with her about, he said, he was saying stuff to her like, you're strong, right? And he said, you have a problem speaking up for yourself? And she, was like, yeah. He said, but you have a problem with speaking up for yourself, but yet you empower others to speak up for themselves? And she said, yes. So there was lots of Merry Christmas messages from Mia to Diddy, Happy New Year messages from Mia to Diddy, a lot of I love you messages, Happy Birthday. It was a lot of messages. Most often, all these messages came with I love you, love, whatever. Some of these were even being sent to Diddy well after she was employed with him. So a lot of that was entered today. Of course, the questioning from the defense was, what's up with these messages? These aren't typically the type of messages you would send to somebody who you said SA'd you multiple times, and you're no longer even working for this person. You're no longer in the grip anymore. Why would you do that? And she said she was still in Diddy's grip psychologically. Okay, then Mia told us about, or she read a message that she had sent to Diddy about a nightmare she had. And in this nightmare, she was on an elevator. She was trapped on an elevator with R. Kelly, and Diddy rescued her. So, of course, the defense was the man who you said SA'd you, physically abused you, verbally abused you. This is the man that you're dreaming who saved you. So again, it was a lot of that type of back and forth between Brian Steele and Mia. So Brian Steele asked her about, do you have any, because part of her job, she carried around a camera with her pretty much everywhere she went. That was part of her job, like social media posts and everything like that. And so, she put together this fabulous scrapbook, for Diddy, with from her photos and going to archives and all of that, just, okay, which also came after the alleged sexual assault. But okay, so the defense attorney was asking her, with all of the everything that you have, your photos, not only for your job but just your social media posts and your messages. Do you have any evidence or any footage or any recordings of Diddy berating you or when Diddy was in a rage? She said no. They asked, well, do you have any messages that you sent to your family or friends, letting them know about this alleged abuse? And she said no. So the defense really spent their time today picking up where they left off on Friday, and that was they painted Mia as a liar who is inconsistent. That is what they set out to do. A lot of people are outraged by that, in part because of the sensitivity of, S8 victims, of course. But, this is a defense attorney. This is what he has been paid to do. And he did what he has been paid to do. Mia talked about, she was questioned about a $10 million suit she had against Diddy. And that was settled for $400,000. She got 200,000, and her attorney got 200,000. And the defense questioned her about this because they said, in this $10 million suit you had against Diddy, you didn't put anything in this lawsuit about SA. Matter of fact, they said to her, you didn't mention anything about SA. I think they said until 2024. So basically, after Cassie came out, and all the things that happened after Cassie came out, including Cassie getting a settlement, that is when, according to the defense, she started mentioning anything about SA. And they were like, why wouldn't you mention SA when you're trying to get a $10 million settlement, to kind of further your case? And why wouldn't you do that? So she just said she didn't, I forget her exact wording, but in short, she didn't want to include that in the discussion around her severance package because she said her plan was to take all of the stuff about SA to the grave with her. She didn't want to talk about that. So the defense says that Mia mentioned SA again only after Cassie's lawsuit. So there's some people in the courtroom who are talking about how it appears that the jury is perceiving Mia on the stand. So all the reports I've heard so far is saying that it appears, however people are judging perception, that it appears that Brian Steele was being received very well by the jury as he crossed Mia, and it just felt as if the jury was more, I guess, supportive of what was going down in the questioning. Don't ask me what criteria they used or how they were judging the perception thing. It might have just been simple as an eye test, but I will say multiple people said that. So what's going to be interesting though, after this is all said and done and a few jurors talk with us about whether that's how they were perceived it at all. They may not have perceived it at all, like how these folks in the courtroom believe the jury is responding to Brian Steele's cross-examination of Mia. So before the defense ended the cross with Mia, they asked about a few more things. They asked about who she worked with after Diddy, and she said she worked for Madonna for 8 months. And they asked her, did Diddy help her get that job? And she said, not only did she say no, she said absolutely not. And so Brian still then said, oh, okay, good. So you weren't blacklisted then. You see what he did there? You see what he did there, right? So then the defense went on to ask Mia about different artists who worked with Cassie. They brought up Nicki Minaj again. They brought up Fabulous this time. They brought up another group. And so, again, the defense there is trying to say and trying to get across to the jurors that Diddy was an advantage and not a detractor to Cassie's career. So they went down that whole little line of questioning, which they've also done with other witnesses. So, in a nutshell, that was Mia's testimony. Like I said, it was all over the place. I felt like the defense definitely did damage to her credibility. I think the redirect from the prosecutor, they did try to clean it up a little bit, trying to emphasize that a part of her job was social media. So, of course, this is why she has all of these posts. They didn't really touch on too much, but after you were no longer working with him, why were you still engaging with him so much? So, I'm sure that gave this whole exchange with Mia has given the jury something to wrestle with, and that they may end up potentially wrestling with to some extent once they're back in the jury room to make a decision or give a verdict on this case. So, the upcoming witnesses that we expect to see this week, starting tomorrow, we expect to see Eddie Garcia. He's hotel security or was hotel security at the Intercontinental Hotel. That is the infamous location now of where the video with Diddy um, committing domestic violence against Cassie that we've all seen was shot. So he's testifying. Before he was in court this morning earlier, and he was saying he was going to invoke his Fifth Amendment. And the judge was given an immunity order to sign, from what I understood, based off of what was being provided to us as to what was going on in the court. The judge signed the immunity order. I heard someone say this afternoon who's also following this case that this person, this witness, is saying that he, Eddie Garcia, that he is still going to plead the Fifth Amendment even with the immunity order. So we'll see if that actually turns out to be the case tomorrow. There's also going to be a witness called Frank Piazza. Piazza or Piazza? He's a forensic video expert. There will be a witness, Derek Ferguson, who is an ex-employee of Diddy, and not just any ex-employee. He was the head of finance at one point. He was also the COO at one point. He graduated from Harvard, so he will definitely be testifying either tomorrow or Wednesday. Brianna Bongolan, she is another person who has accused Diddy of SA, and if I am remembering correctly, she is also the person that Diddy allegedly hung off, dangled over a balcony. So she will be testifying this week as well. And then we have another person, Jane, who's also testifying under a pseudonym, and she will be testifying also about SA and other types of abuses at the hand of Diddy. So after all of that happened today, it was very interesting to me, like during the lunch break, to hear lawyers talk about the big debate that a lot of folks are having around where's the evidence towards RICO. And depending on what show you watch, you'll have some lawyers say, okay, if you follow these questions and follow these responses, those things are dotting I's and crossing T's to tie back to RICO. But then you will have a whole nother group that's like they're not doing that yet. And one of the things that was interesting with the lawyers that I was listening to today, they said that in the closing statements, especially from the prosecutor, they're going to have to basically tell a story, paint a picture, or get it across to this set of 12 jurors and the alternates. They're going to have to explain why this case is a RICO case, because there's a lot of people who, even with all of this evidence, even with acknowledging that there's clearly some things that Diddy's likely guilty of, especially like kidnapping with Capricorn and all of that type of thing, people are still saying, but those are crimes, yes, but it's not RICO. So since these lawyers were saying, since this case is not what you would consider a traditional RICO case, that they're going to have to probably just really in their closing statements really explain to the jury why this qualifies as a RICO and why they have proven their case. So, the fact that they are even talking that they will have to do that might support what a lot of people are feeling, which is we don't really see what you're saying about this being as far as the RICO charges, because the understanding that most people have is that you have to show us that these crimes that he's committing is somehow supporting the furtherance of a criminal enterprise. And it's not easy for a lot of people to connect those dots. I personally, even after doing my own homework to understand predicate acts and all of this type of thing, I still feel like it's a patchwork quilt effort to try to make these things stitched together. So we'll see how all of that turns out. And the prosecutors are bringing so many alleged victims of SA and other, like, any, if even if the employees, even if it's just physical violence, they're bringing so many of those witnesses to try to show that there is an environment of coercion, and that's in order to support the ex trafficking charges. So, in a nutshell, that is what happened today. So let's hope tomorrow goes better than what happened today. I thank you all so much for checking in and stopping by my channel to view this video. I appreciate it so much. Please thumbs up the video. Drop a comment. I want to know, what do you think about, the testimony today, the case overall? What are your opinions? What are your thoughts? And if you're not a subscriber already, please consider subscribing to the channel. I would really appreciate your support. And until the next time, bye, y'all.